I'm in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, where the deadliest conflict since the Second World War has been raging for over a decade. The war has already claimed millions of lives as bands of armed militias battle the army for control of the country's vast mineral wealth. One of the minerals, coltan, is used in our mobile phones, laptops and remote controls. We may all have blood on our hands.
They cut your arms first before they raped you.
Rape as a weapon of war has become a brutal feature of this deadly conflict.
Kubaka ya oda ni mkubwa ndio anapana oda anasema ni kuharibisha.
Now I'm heading into the heart of the war zone to find out for myself what can be done to end this appalling cycle of violence, which amounts to the rape and plunder of an entire nation. Congo is a war zone. There are no international flights in or out of its capital, Goma. So we're having to begin our journey by flying to Rwanda, before continuing by road. Rwanda is where the war in the Congo has its murky origins. We just arrived in Kigali, the capital of Rwanda. And looking around here now, it's difficult to believe that this was the backdrop to a genocide that shook the world. Just under 1 million people were brutally murdered here, the majority of whom were hacked to death with machetes. It rightly made front-page news around the world. But the ongoing war in the neighbouring Democratic Republic of Congo, or DRC, rarely makes the headlines. The United Nations has described the DRC as the rape capital of the world. It is estimated that some 6 million people have been killed there in the last 10 years, and tens of thousands are added to that number every month. We're on our way there to find out why so little is known about the bloodiest conflict the planet has witnessed since the end of the Second World War. Rwanda, the country of 1,000 hills, is peaceful now and run along orderly lines. And the road which leads to the Congo is surprisingly good. But it wasn't always like this. In 1994, simmering ethnic hatred in Rwanda between the HUTU and TUTSI tribes boiled over, and the Hutu set about systematically ethnically cleansing the country of Tutsis. But the Tutsis then rose up against the Hutus, 2 million of whom were forced to flee the country. Amongst them were some of the ringleaders of the genocide. We've been driving for about 2 hours now, and the road is following a river that slowly winds into the Congo. And I'm reminded that this is the route that the Hutu militia took after the genocide in Rwanda. This is the way they got into the Congo. And once they arrived there, they started a war. The city of Goma is seated at the base of an active volcano, and to add to the general chaos of this battle-scarred city, many of the roads are now encrusted with rough, hardened lava, which makes driving on them challenging. I'm heading to Panzi Hospital, the only medical facility in the country equipped to deal with the worst cases of rape and sexual violence, which have become a hallmark of this brutal conflict. I'm going to meet Dr. Dennis Mukwege, who founded the hospital in response to the crisis in the country. He's been treating the most serious cases of rape and mutilation here for 10 years.
We have our operating room here for the general surgery, and we have 2 rooms there for especially for fistula and mutilated women.
Sorry, that's very difficult for me to understand. What do you mean?
We saw that many women who were coming here with the story of rape, after to be raped, they are wounded in the genital party. And it can be to cut the labial, it can be to cut the clitoris, it can be to put fire, some of them...
Fire?
Exactly.
Well, they put burning wood in
plastic, warm plastic, and just
stick it inside the woman's vagina.
Exactly, and all this can just make wound on the genital part.
Why do they want to cut the labial, the clitoris, or why stick burning?
I think that all these
people?
things is done publicly, and I think that it's a strategy to traumatize as possible as they can traumatize not only the victim but the family.
So basically, it's rape being used as a weapon.
Exactly.
On our way around the hospital, we come across Sarah, a young rape victim.
She's only 14.
Yeah.
And balukamata kunakuwa miaka ngapi? She was raped when she was only 13.
13.
And now, with a baby.
Who was responsible for the rape? HUTUs. Are her family okay?
She's now alone in life with a child. The father are the killers of the whole family. It's terrible.
What about children who have been raped? Do you get children here?
Yeah.
Very young?
Yeah, with 3 years. 3
years old?
Yeah. Raped with all the genital parts completely exploded.
Her genital parts had exploded?
Exactly. The rectum, the vagina, the bladder, it was just
gone.
Gone. The brutality of the Hutu militia and the awful consequences for their victims seems to know no bounds.
Can you tell me your name?
And what is your story? What happened to you? How comes your hands have been cut off? Do you have any idea why they did this?
Ndio nikiwaona wanakwea wanavala vya mweusi niwaka na bebe watuamo sasa vile huyu mwenye niko naye kisha sasa niliwaonaka hivi nikikimbia kwenye nilianguka sasa mpore ndio sasa wakenikata mkono nikamweka.
They cut your arms first before they raped you.
Sasa sasa vile walianzaka kama kumikono ndio walianzaka mia akili kipotee wakawa na bebe watuamo.
You had a baby and they killed the baby of 3 months as well.
Na kulunguza manyumba. Na sisi tuko huko njala, kukosa nyumba. Na ndio vile niko mpangai na teso mingi kabisa.
Habari.
Dr. Mukwege is seen as a saviour here by hundreds of women who have been raped and often mutilated and are now recovering from surgery.
Rose.
After they were raped, many of these women were forced to become sex slaves and mules, carrying valuable minerals which fuel the ongoing war.
I'm into, yeah? And what's the story?
Siku walinibeba kule kupori, walibaka makasterite pale mushimu, wakaniambia nibebe 20 kilo. 20 kilo ya kasterite ni ya kilo sana. Lakini juu ya kunipiga na mateso mingi nilifikishaka kule kupori, kuniwateramwe wanaikalaka. Banakamataka watu wanachinja hivi kupasula mu marafiki.
Cut its skull in half?
Yes.
Utoto mdogo wanamkamata tu ni kupiga tu kulijiwe unakufa. Wanawakata masikio kisha wanamaliza tulala wanaambia na baba yetu nao watulale mule mumacho. Baba yetu nao wanatulala. Bakishamaliza tulala vile watasema juu walitulala basi bauwe. Banaua tena baba yetu macho yetu.
So why would they ask them to rape the parents to rape their own children?
I think that it's a kind of just doing things to try to destroy not only physically but also psychologically. So they can be sure that they destroy everything. Even if they let
the family.
Yeah, even if they left you in life, but you are completely destroyed. Wanabakia wewe peke.
Babangu ni mzee sana, mimi ndio wa mwisho. Ile siku alibakaka wakaua babangu, kaka yangu na mwingine mkubwa yangu. Juu sasa babangu alikatala hata nilala, wakamtosha macho, wakamkata masikio.
So they plucked his eyes out and they cut off his ears and then they killed the father?
Yeah.
Yes.
Most of the women and children here are now living as refugees in the hospital because they are no longer welcome in their own communities.
The thing that's making me rather angry is the fact that this has been going on for some 10 years and shows no sign of letting up. I personally now want to go, if I can, and face the men that are capable of plucking a father's eyes out because he won't rape his own daughter and then killing him. Men who are capable of raping a 3-year-old child. Men who are capable of raping a woman and then putting a gun inside her and pulling the trigger. I want to meet people that are capable of doing those things and ask them why.
I'm in Goma, the capital of the war-torn Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. Rape and unspeakable acts of sexual violence, as well as the recruitment of thousands of child soldiers, have become hallmarks of this brutal conflict, which has already claimed millions of lives. The streets of Goma are bristling with guns, some belonging to the Congolese army and others to the United Nations, who are trying to bring peace to this troubled region. More than a decade of conflict have left a legacy of chaos and corruption. I've met a local journalist who's trying to help me make sense of what's going on here.
It's a business culture in Goma. Yeah, all the business is done here.
But this country has more minerals, more gold, has oil, has all the things that can make this the richest country in the whole of Africa.
Of course, the problem is leadership. The leadership is not good. They work for feeding the stomachs. They don't care about the population.
What kind of corruption? How corrupt are things around here?
The agents who work in the government, they don't get well paid. So since they don't receive a good pay, they have children, their family, they need to ask for blessings.
Blessings, you call it?
Yes.
That's a bribe, we call it.
Yes.
It's called a blessing here, yeah?
Yeah.
I want to come face to face with the men capable of carrying out the horrific crimes that we heard about in Panzi Hospital. And the obvious place to start is the city's jail. The UN described this as the worst prison in Africa. Originally built to house 150 prisoners, it now has nearly 1,000.
Bonjour, je suis pour vous.
Moi, je suis du ministère de la Justice.
Monsieur beaucoup.
Soyez les bienvenus à la prison centrale de Goma.
Okay. Are most of those people in that prison for murder and for rape, or are they in there for other crimes against society?
Oui, oui. Il y a ceux qui sont condamnés pour les problèmes de violence sexuelle. Il y a ceux qui sont condamnés pour assassinat, meurtre, escroquerie, abus de confiance, vol, main armée, et ainsi de suite.
Are most of the prisoners in their military, militia?
Tous les groupes confondus sont là. Il y a les militaires qui sont arrêtés là-bas, du gouvernement. Il y a les militaires qui sont venus des milices et des groupes armés. Toutes les catégories sont là.
I find it hard to believe that these warring factions who have been fighting and killing each other for over a decade are not kept in a separate jail.
Bonjour. Ça va?
All the prisoners, numbering 968 on the day that we visited, are crammed into the prison yard, less than the size of a football pitch. Only about a third of the men here, the ones in orange jumpsuits, have so far been tried and convicted. The rest are on remand, awaiting trial. There are no guards, The prison is run by captains drawn from the prisoners themselves. I can't help feeling slightly vulnerable amongst this group of 1,000 men, and most of whom are accused of rape and murder. One of the prison captains offers to show me the cell he's in charge of.
And this is the cell for how many men? 44?
Yeah, in a cell.
It's difficult to see, there's no light, huh?
There is no power.
Despite the overcrowding, I can't help feeling I'm being shown the nicest cell in the prison. This time last year, one of the militias tried to spring a senior member from the prison using AK-47s and grenades. In the ensuing chaos, the prisoners broke into the women's wing of the jail and gang-raped more than 20 women. The prison authorities have arranged for me to meet Shombo Chance, a militiaman tried and convicted of rape.
Bonjour. Bonjour. Hello. You okay? So how old were you when you first joined the army? Are you guilty of rape? Did you hurt her? Did you put a knife to her or anything? Did you beat her? Do you feel sorry for what happened to that woman? Do you feel remorse?
Shombo Chance is the only rapist the prison authorities will allow me to speak to. If I'm going to come face to face with the kind of militiamen who subjected the women we met at Pansy Hospital to such inhuman acts of torture and mutilation, I'm going to have to look further afield. MONUC, as it is known, is the biggest UN force on the planet. There are 18,500 blue-helmeted troops here trying to support the Congolese army in their attempts to stamp out the Hutu militia, known as the FDLR.
We're on our way to the UN airport in Goma. We're going to pick up a helicopter and travel 250 clicks north to a place called Walikale. When we get there, we're going to RV with the UN troops. The bush that surrounds Walikale is infested with FDLR soldiers, and the UN troops at the moment are very much on their guard because one of their soldiers was shot dead yesterday.
Although there are no international flights in or out of Goma, there are plenty of military ones. While we're waiting for the flight, a memorial ceremony is taking place at the airport for the UN peacekeeper who was just shot dead by unidentified militiamen. Where we're heading, there are no roads. We're flying up country where the Hutu militia are hidden deep in the jungle. The main roads around the remote town of Walikale have long since disintegrated, and the only practical way of getting in or out is on the twice-weekly UN supply flights.
A welcome breeze. I have to say this is, you know, as hot as Afghanistan. really is incredibly humid here and very different from where we've been down in Goma.
Thousands of Hutu militiamen, including their leader, are hidden deep in the jungle surrounding Walikale. Perched on a hilltop above the town is the UN's command base, home to 100 peacekeepers from the Indian Army unit, the Fighting Fifth. The battalion distinguished themselves in counter-terrorism operations in India before being posted to the Congo. There are no hospital or medical facilities here, and we are entirely dependent on the UN for our security if anything goes wrong. Captain Thalpa Galsa is coming to the end of a one-year tour.
And how often do you patrol this area?
Every day, once in the morning and once at night.
So what problems do you face in terms of patrolling here?
The only problem here is you cannot really tell when the FDLR is going to attack or loot any village. Yeah. They can come anytime.
Part of the UN's role here, in conjunction with the Congolese army, is to try to protect innocent villagers caught in the crossfire. We suddenly come across a contingent from the Congolese army, but we soon realise that some of the soldiers here are former members of another militia group known as the CNDP, started by the Tutsis, who took up arms against the Hutus who came across the border from Rwanda after the genocide. Now they've joined forces with the Congolese army to try to defeat a common enemy, the Hutus.
Now, it's well known that the CNDP were responsible for going into villages, raping, murdering, looking for Hutus, killing them. And now they're integrated into the government and they're actually working hand in hand or alongside with the United Nations here. You know, I can't ask the captain to comment on that because it's not his job, but the fact is that, you know, you now have a lot of people that are responsible for killings, for raping and for murdering, who are now part of the regular Congolese army.
As we travel deeper into the jungle, the likelihood of enemy attack increases. I get the sense the UN troops are keen to get back to base, and they're not the only ones.
I think that's just about it. But now back in Walikale, it's still very hot, even though it's gone dark virtually. But I have to say, I for one am very happy that we're back with the vehicles.
Unfortunately, the UN can't put us up at their base, and we're forced to find accommodation in town, which is basic to say the least. It has no electricity, food, or running water. But during the night, I discover it has plenty of bed bugs, mosquitoes, and rats. Although we've still seen no sign of the Hutu militia who are being hunted by the UN and the Congolese army, I have now managed to make contact with another notorious armed group, the Mai Mai.
The Mai Mai are a Congolese militia group originally set up to defend themselves against the other militias that would come in and attack their villages. That said, we have heard that now they operate independently as a militia, that they're responsible for rape, and also they have many young soldiers fighting for them. There are still some 8,000 child soldiers estimated to be out in the bush, and the Mai Mai use children on a frequent basis. Hello. Bonjour.
The Mai Mai commanders have organised a traditional African welcome for us, and we're taken to a nearby parade ground. The Mai Mai act as a kind of self-defense militia, and they even include women amongst their ranks.
Are there some very young soldiers here? Do they ever have very young soldiers?
Niwaambie watu yao wa UNICEF wanapitaka wa Save the Children wanakiona situation ya soldiers.
What age can you become Mai Mai?
After the parade, the Mai Mai commanders are keen to tell me why they felt forced to take up arms.
Can you tell me why the Mai Mai was formed?
Adui wa Mai Mai ni kusema mtu akafia kwenda kutafuta pouvoir. Sawa vile muno antua. Kuko vita ambayo ilipasuka, ilikuwa vita ya Muhutu na Muzairwa. Ilikuwa ule Muhutu alitafuta kuforme ma commune, ma territoire ama katikati ya nchi ya Congo wa kutoka Rwanda, lakini sasa Mai Mai kafika mara moja akaanza kupiganisha kwanza ule. Ukisha apenda kuchukusa gouvernement, tunaita bakoko yetu ambao waliofariki, wanatupatia majani, tunaenda piganisha ule mwenyewe anakuwa kuchukusa gouvernement.
The ancestors have given you special herbs to make you strong. What are those herbs? Can you tell me what they are?
Ni majani ya bakoko yenye nakubalisha risasi kupitia tunapigania pouvoir yetu.
So if you take these herbs, the bullets are no good.
Ile mayani tunaitengenezaka, tunachanga na mai, bakisha kutupia hayo na kukuchanja hayo, risasi haiwezi ingia.
But we have been told that members of the Mai Mai have raped women. Is there any truth in that?
Nisi tuko batoto ya nchi. Tuko batoto ya ndani, Congolese disa, ba patriote, ila hatuwezi. Na Mai Mai makondisio zetu hawezi viole,
hata haiko viole.
Hawezi fanya kitu yoyote ya mubaya. Ile dawa inakatala.
I can't say I'm sad to be leaving Walikale, but just to show how complex the situation is, shortly after our visit, in an unlikely alliance, Mai Mai and Hutu militias joined together and entered a village just 30 miles from the UN base and systematically gang-raped nearly 200 women and children over a 4-day period. The UN could do nothing to stop this prolonged and horrifying attack. I now want to find out how the militias fund this brutal war through the control of the lucrative mineral trade. One of the Congo's most sought-after minerals is coltan. It's used in consumer electronics which find their way onto our high streets. I want to go and see a coltan mine for myself, but so bad is the reputation of the mineral industry here and its role in funding the war that the Congolese authorities want to prevent us filming one and have told us it's too dangerous. But we are determined to find one. I'm on my way into an area formerly controlled by the Tutsi militia known as the CNDP, who have fought against both the Congolese army and the Hutu militia. The UN have told us it's not safe to travel this road and are providing us with a military escort who we're meeting at a rendezvous 50 miles west of Goma.
Pleased to meet you. Yes, Corporal Sam. Okay, you will be driving from you at the back. When something happens, then you can be able to protect you.
From the back?
From the back, yes.
Rather than from the front? I prefer it the other way around, generally.
With the UN bringing up the rear, we drive into an area they have told us is highly dangerous. The mine we're going to produces cassiterite, which is used for soldering, as well as coltan, used the world over in electronic goods like laptops, computer games, and remote controls. In recent years, there has been fierce fighting for control of the mine between the militias and the Congolese army.
Right, well, we've reached the end of the road quite literally. We're having to say goodbye to our UN escort, and we've now got about an hour's trek down to the mine.
If they don't directly control a mine, the militias seek to raise money by setting up roadblocks or ambushes along routes like this one. Often it's women like those we met at Panzi Hospital who are made to carry the minerals. The militias demand what they call taxes, using the threat of violence, rape or murder.
This really is sort of idyllic walking down here, and it really doesn't give you a true flavour of what it's really like here. I mean, there are militias all around here. Obviously, we haven't bumped into them yet, and to be honest, I hope that we don't.
If we do run into a militia now, our UN protection is an hour away.
That, if I'm not mistaken, is what we've come all this way for. That is a coltan and cassiterite mine.
Once the coltan leaves Goma, it's shipped to the Far East, where it's smelted. By then, the blood minerals from the Congo are untraceable and may be sold on to electronic giants worldwide.
So these guys have been sifting for a considerable amount of time, and they've actually produced that black material from washing it out of the chalk soil. So how much ore do you think is actually there? And how long would it have taken them to have made that $10? How long have you been working here? What do you think happens to all the coltan that you dig up? Do you know where it goes? Do you know what it's used for? Do you understand where it goes in terms of electronic equipment, etc.?
But the owner of the mine knows all too well where it ends up.
This is coltan here, and in my hand here, just considerably heavier, is cassiterite. But the mine owner here is telling me that when he gets this eventually to the market in Goma, that this goes for about $5 to $6, the cassiterite a kilo, and this can go as much as $20 a kilo.
The DRC has an estimated 2/3 of the world's coltan, essential to our high-tech lives. I find it hard to believe that in the 21st century, miners here are still digging it out with their bare hands.
Quite simply, the taxes levied for mines like this one fund the war. They end up paying for RPGs and for AK-47s. The United Nations has said that multinationals who end up buying coltan aren't funding the war, but they're the driving force behind it. And here's the thought. Maybe the camera that's filming me, and possibly the mobile phone that's in your pocket right now, has blood on it from the Congo.
I'm in Goma, the capital of the war-torn region of the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo. From the beginning of my journey, I wanted to come face to face with the men who are capable of committing the most horrific crimes of sexual violence that have become the feature of this deadly conflict. Now we've finally made contact with someone who's prepared to talk about the crimes he's committed.
We're on our way to meet an ex-child soldier. His nickname was Satan because he was so violent when he was in the militia. Apparently he's going to talk to us about the fact that he's raped people and he's murdered people.
Satan has never been arrested or tried for the war crimes he's committed, and he's insisted that he remain anonymous. We're meeting him at a secret location in the city.
Can you tell me what your name is?
Balkwanita Belzebul. Bon, ni jumie siku mtu ya maboga, mimi kwa sama très méchant.
Can you tell me how old you were when you joined the militia?
Nilikuwa na 12 ans.
How many other child soldiers were with you when you were in the militia?
Sisi tulikuwa kwa kwanza groupe tulikuwa ka 1200. Shiba kadogo tulikuwa ka presque moitié, tulikuwa kama 500 600.
You tell me about the training that you received when you first joined the militia.
Ilikuwa ngufu juu kwanza formation Mnyarwanda yeye anaforma kana fimbo. Aforma kesa bengine atakia abafundishe kutablo, abafundishe hivi. Yatakia na fimbo, anakwambia kugeuka ni hivi. Ukifanya contraire vile anakupiga. Anakwambia utalamuka deze, mutafanyi bote mchaka. Au kulamuka mbele banakupiga. Fimbo njoo ilikuwa naishia na tuforme fimbo. Hapana kitu kingine, fimbo.
Were you ever in a situation where it was child fighting child because you were allegedly so fearless?
Ndio na Kabila naye, Kabila babake na huyu Joseph na alikuwa naye na bakadogo. Tulikuwa pigana sama na benzetu bakaju Kabila alikamata naye bakadogo mbele yetu. Tulikuwa tunapigana sasa, tukipigana na faki tu bakadogo walikuwa mfaki. Mavita nilipigana vita mrefu.
What were the kind of orders that you carried out? Did you rape women when you were in these villages?
Ndio ni mpori juu ni jeshi atulipo, hakuna banamuke, hakuna nini. Kubaka vinapitikana mpori ni kawaida. Nishaona kwa banabaka nisha participer mie.
How old were you when you participated in the rape?
13 ans, 14 ans.
Does it not upset you and you don't feel guilty about what you did?
Bon, ndio na mimi furaha yake juu ni vitu tulikuwa nafanya juu tuko wengi. Sasa tuko mingi, mwenye anatosha tu idea wa kwanza tunafuata shivote ile idea yake. Ndio maana na sisi semena biwaza sana juu ni vibaya tulitenda. Hatuwezi sema no tutabisahau, ni vibaya.
Did any of your group ever cut women with machetes or kill them after they raped them?
Ndio ni vita. Binapitikanaka.
Do you think when the rapes happened that they were commanded by your officers to intimidate the population, or were they just allowing you to have fun or enjoy yourself?
Iko na sanse mbili kubaka gisi juu kubaka huko kubaka na kwa kubaka ya nombre au ya oda. Sasa gisi yeye anasema pale. Kubaka ya oda ni mkubwa ndio anapana oda, anasema no mutaribi ni kuharibisha. Hata sema mtengeneze na atasema mutawaribishia tu.
We've just met an ex-child soldier who openly admits to murder, rape, and I have to be honest, showed very little remorse about what he'd done when he was in the militia. The fact that he's showing no remorse, I think, probably has a lot to do with his age. I don't think he's come to terms yet with what he actually did and what he experienced. But also, I have to say, you couldn't see his face. He's awfully young. Unfortunately, I've looked into the eyes of a number of people who are killers. And whether it was inside him beforehand or whether it was beaten into him, that man now has the eyes of what I would consider to be a killer. And I think his life is changed forever because of that. And unfortunately, he, like many others, probably has a horrible future.
It's time for me to leave the Congo. But on my last day, there are more police and soldiers on the streets of Goma than I've seen before. It's the 50th anniversary of the Congo's independence from Belgium this year, and the country's president, Joseph Kabila, has called on the UN to pull out all of its 18,500 peacekeepers before the next election in September 2011. But many people believe that Kabila plans to use the state of anarchy caused by the UN's withdrawal to cancel the election, declare martial law, and cling onto power. I wonder what Dr. Mukwege, who has treated the most severe rape victims at Panzi Hospital for a decade now, makes of the situation his country faces.
There are rumours that the United Nations army here might be leaving the forces. What do you think will happen?
It will be a catastrophe. If this happens, I will not accept someone to come from Europe or the state and say it was a big mistake. We didn't appreciate well the situation and we took a bad decision. Because they know that if they take this decision, it will be a catastrophe in this area. But my big question is about people who are normal and are accepting to buy what they are looted, what
the soldiers have taken.
And I think that there is many people who are taking benefit in
around the world.
Around the world. My question is how they can accept this kind of benefit when they know what is going on the body of the women for to get this mineral. And this is going on 10 years. It's not just something who happened and we can say, yeah, no one was informed, so it's something who just, but all the world is informed.
It's been happening for 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years. It happened in Bosnia. But in Bosnia, the reaction after 3 months, all the world say this have not to happen, and they stop it.
Because this is Black Africa, do you think?
I don't want to accept this because...
but it's a possibility.
But if it's so, it's very sorry. Because we are all on the same planet.
We're all human beings.
Yeah.
Despite the presence of the United Nations, this country is the scene of the biggest human tragedy of the 21st century. Since its creation, the Congo has been systematically raped of its natural resources, both from outside and from within. The levels of brutality and sexual violence I've witnessed here are subhuman. And I'm frankly quite embarrassed about how little I knew about what was really going on here. This is a country where murder and rape are so commonplace they've actually become the norm. And it's hard to believe that things could get much worse here. But if the United Nations are forced to pull out, then the consequences for the people of the Congo are quite simply unimaginable. And future generations will ask the question why all of us sat back and did nothing.